Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 23rd of March, wherein we pick up all important news for the day and explain it to you from the examination perspective. So let's look at the important topics which we are going to cover today. First is Large Hadron Collider has discovered a new particle, which is the 80th particle named as ZCC+. Then India has achieved 1 billion ton coal production for a second consecutive year, a remarkable achievement of India with respect to coal production. Then there is a report which is highlighting that youth suicides is on rise in India. We are going to discuss about it. Then our Honorable Prime Minister has highlighted the need for water conservation on World Water Day, which is celebrated, of course, on 22nd of March. And there has been recurring fire safety lapses in India, which has highlighted systemic issues around fire safety in India. Then we are also going to discuss certain quick updates for the day. So the very first news is Large Hadron Collider has discovered its 80th particle with the naming of ZCC+. So these type of topics become important for your prelims examination. They can ask you ZCC+ was sometime back seen in news. It is related to what? Right. So these questions are nature of questions which could be framed from topics like this in the prelims examination. Now, in general, scientists around the world have been trying to discover and understand what exactly universe is made up of. And through series of discoveries, they have identified different particles. What is the composition of this exact universe? And this is where the Large Hadron Collider has, of course, been helping with respect to discoveries of new particles. And 80th particle with the name of ZCC+ has been discovered recently. The Large Hadron Collider has also discovered few important particles. For example, Higgs boson in 2012, which basically explains why do particles have mass. Then we had exotic hadrons, which is talking about that particles are made up of 4 or 5 quarks. We'll discuss what exactly are these quarks. And then a rare B meson decay, which helps study fundamental forces. They can ask you these basic names. Higgs boson, exotic hadrons, rare B meson decay are related to which thing? So again, they are basically talking about matter. Right, what is the composition of matter and how these discoveries has led to better understanding of how is universe made up of. Right, so then what exactly is a new particle all about? Before that, it is very important that this ZCC+, I will discuss one important thing that again you need to also understand what is the composition of this matter. So matter we first broke down and we found molecules. After molecules, we further try to understand what is under these molecules. So again, once we discovered molecules, then we found again atoms. Then atoms, what is the composition of these atoms? Atoms consist of protons and neutrons. We have discovered this. And then the final, the last, or maybe this is where the discovery still goes on. We are trying to figure out what is the different kind of particles which has led to this composition of universe. And the last one is, of course, quarks. So quarks are the smallest building blocks of matter that we currently exactly know. So matter, first we divided into molecules, molecules into atoms, atoms into protons and neutrons, then into quarks. That is the smallest binding block of matter what we know as of now. So they can ask you what are quarks. So quarks are what? Basically smallest building blocks of matter. Then we'll discuss basically about CC+. So basically this has 2 charm quarks and 1 down quark. So basically, as I have discussed, quarks are the fundamental building blocks of matter, and there are 6 flavors of quarks which are there. For example, up, down, charm, strange, top and bottom. You need not to know in detail about these quarks, just know basics around what exactly are quarks and what is the new discovery of this with the Large Hadron Collider. That is the only thing which you need to require as an important fact for your prelims examination. And then we are comparing that quark with respect to proton. So proton usually consists of 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, and this particle, that is ZCC+, consists of 2 charm quarks and 1 down quark. So these are basically 2 charm, 1 down are basically different types of quarks or different flavors of quarks what we have discovered. So, and again, one more important thing, कि quarks are basically do not found at single. ये सब single नहीं मिलते हैं. They always are found in combination. They are never found alone. That's a basic idea. And why this particle is very important, because it has charm quarks instead of up quarks. This makes it 4 times heavier than proton. So again, that's how we are discovering, scientists are trying to discover what is the composition of universe and what is the universe made up of, and they are dissecting it to the smallest possible manner to understand why is universe in this way as of now. That's a basic understanding of this. Then very quickly we'll see what exactly is Large Hadron Collider, because sometimes certain underlying static part of your syllabus comes back in news with these kind of developments and discoveries. So yes, you must have read many times about what exactly is this Large Hadron Collider in your science and tech section. So this is basically world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator, basically trying to discover different particles, what is the composition of universe, where exactly it is 100 meters underground at CERN, that is European Organization for Nuclear Research. So it is a structure which is having 27-kilometer ring of superconducting magnets. And how does it works? So basically 2 beams of protons or ions move at a speed of light, and then they are made to collide. Once they will collide, then will break down, and then we will be able to understand what is the composition of that particular proton, or maybe how further we can dissect this whole matter. That's a basic idea. So collision, of course, create new particles, and these collision, which is creating new particles, is helping us to understand what is the mass of matter, what is the unification of forces, what is dark energy, what is dark matter. All of these are the benefits, or the scientists are getting to know through this Large Hadron Collider. That's a basic idea. Then again, we also quickly see about CERN, that is we have discussed. So CERN is basically an organization which is world's largest centers for scientific research, of course, in Europe. It is located in Franco-Swiss border near Geneva. It was established in the year 1954. Basic facts you need to remember for your prelims examination. They can talk about some facts about CERN, and they can give you a few statements. That's how these topics are very important from science and tech or basic science sections of your prelims syllabus. So members of these organizations consist of 25 member states, and India is an associate member of this particular organization. That's all about this CERN and this new discovery by Large Hadron Collider. Very important topic. Prepare it for your upcoming prelims examination. Then the next topic is, again, India has achieved 1 billion tons coal production in the second consecutive year, which is, of course, a very remarkable journey of India with respect to self-sustenance in the coal production, because a very important energy security parameter for India. So we have one mission with the name of Coal Logistics Policy Plan of 2024. Under this, we have a plan to produce 1.5 billion ton of coal by 2030. So currently, for the last 2 years, we have been producing 1 billion tons. The target is of 1.5 billion tons annually by 2030. So please remember these basic targets again for your prelims examination as it is approaching. That's why I'm specifically focusing on your prelims based questions which could be framed from these news, because they're very latest news that could be an important theme for your upcoming prelims examination. Right, now very basics about coal sector in India. So India is the second largest. Again, yes, all these facts are very important. They can come up in a form of a question statement in multiple choice questions of your examination, right? So coal is basically, India is the second largest consumer of coal, right? And because of course India uses a lot of coal energy, then it is also the second largest producer of coal. India also produces a lot, and India is having the 5th largest geological reserves of coal. That is a basic facts which is very important for your prelims examination. Then why coal sector is important for India? Why? What is the importance of coal for India? We'll discuss very few basic facts. Number one is, it is giving us a strength for energy security, because you must be knowing that with the situation on West Asia, right, or the whole disturbance of let's say natural gas is there. So that's where this energy security parameter comes into consideration once we discuss about coal and why we are focusing on increasing its production, right? So coal contributes 74% of electricity which is generated in India is through coal. So now you understand why it is very important, and it gives very reliable base load power. What is base load power? So that is ensuring continuous electricity supply. There are other sources for generation of energy as well. For example, we have natural gas. Of course, with the whole West Asia conflicts, we are dependent on it, right? Then because for we have this whole Shanti Act, which was passed by the Parliament in the winter session, which talks about that again we are going to involve private players as well in the nuclear energy generation in India. So again, for that we require uranium, but again, uranium is also having restricted supplies. We are also focusing on, with the whole idea of climate change, we are focusing on renewable energies. But again, renewable energies depends on, of course, on critical minerals. And critical minerals, there is a dominance in case with respect to them in China, right? So these are the factors why it is making coal an important energy security parameter for India. So it is basically a backup engine for India's power system, number one. Number two, supports coal industries. There are a lot of industries which are dependent on coal. For example, power generation, steel industry, cement industry. So these industries are also helping for boosting India's economic growth, infrastructure development, and growth overall. Then we have import substitution. So producing coal in India reduces imports. Although we're importing coal, we discussed this is again a challenge for India as well. But again, with more we produce coal, we are going to meet our requirement in a sustainable manner without dependence on export. That's a basic idea. It is going to help our foreign exchange, improve current account balance, and less import means we are of course going to have stronger economy. That's why coal is important, and that's its significance. Then what are the challenges of reliance on coal as a energy security parameter for India? Number one is you need to also understand that we are experiencing climate change, and of course we are talking a lot about how we can reduce these greenhouse gas emissions, and we are going to focus more on clean energy. And this is where developed countries are pushing us for, let's say, substituting coal as a energy security parameter, and that is where this is a challenge which is coming into picture. So global pushback against coal, developed countries are of course telling us to phase down our coal, and this creates pressure on funding and uncertainty for future coal projects in India. Number two, we are still dependent on coal for imports as well. So why? Because the quality of coal which is found in India, it has a very high ash content. It has a low calorific value. That is, it is of course the amount of coal producing less energy. So that's where India is still dependent, and it is of course let's say hurting us on our foreign exchanges as well. And this, so India still imports approximately 24 to 48.5 million tons of coals, right? And lastly, there are other issues with respect to coal in India. For example, land acquisition delays with respect to the coal mines, and again we have environmental degradation which has been created with respect to coal production, specifically from the open cast mining. Then again, once these mines are there, once they are getting environmental clearances, then again there are of course laws in the country which is helping the people to get rehabilitated to a safer place from the mining area. So that is again a concern for that is in India as well. So for rehabilitation concerns, people displaced from these mining areas. So these are the prominent challenges that with respect to why we need to focus more on coal production, and why and what are the challenges which we are facing. That's all in the news with respect to this. Again, important parameter for both of your prelims as well as mains examination. Then there are different initiatives with respect to coal sector in India which the government has been doing. Yeah, थोड़े सा important facts for your prelims examination. For example, for commercial coal mining and FDI policy, 100% FDI we have opened up with respect to companies to come and go for mining projects with respect to coal, and it is of course attracting foreign as well as private investment in the coal mining sector. Then we have coal block allocation and minerals and mines. There is a new act which is of course reforming the whole areas of development and research over there. So it is making coal allocation more transparent and improving the whole ideas of ease and doing business. Then we have mission cooking coal, which is focusing more on increasing domestic supply, which is promoting market based pricing. And coal gasification, again more safer way of using coal. For example, it converts coal into gas, which is of course more cleaner and more efficient use of coal. They can ask you what is coal gasification. So gasification is what? It is basically converting coal into gas, which is making it more cleaner and more efficient to use as a form of energy. So again, these basic facts, again, important for your prelims examination. Moving on to the next topic, that is youth suicides on rise in India. A very important topic for your GS paper number 1 under the topic of Indian society. Many questions which are being asked in GS paper 1 from the topic of society, they are something which is you are seeing them in your common day-to-day activities and again in the newspapers. For example, I think in 2022 or 3 there was one article which talks about that how young women are, or suicides among young women are increasing, and a question came in examination, explain the reasons of suicides again or increasing suicides among young women in India. So again, this is where youth suicides are increasing. So they can ask you for social reasons or its sociological analysis with respect to suicides in India. And again, for students of sociology option in paper number 2 or in paper number 2 with respect to Indian society, you're going to see the forms of suicide, right? And that is where the whole ideas of Durkheim side comes into picture over here, right? So a very important topic for your mains examination from the topic of GS paper number 1, Indian society. So what are the reasons, and maybe whenever you read such pieces of articles, understand that you need to read those articles from the perspective of writing down an answer in the examination. So you need to have that clarity in mind as well. So whenever you are reading a piece of article, understand how a prelims based questions could be framed from this particular news, or it could be framed or not. And second, if a question is being asked, how I can use the content which is presented over here in my answer writing, that is of course going to award me more marks. So if there is a question on, let's say, youth suicides in India, we can of course going to start the answer by writing an introduction. And introduction, we are going to quote some datas. And these articles are going to give you certain authenticated government data with respect to suicide rates in the country. So once you use these data, once you have noted down in your respective notes, that is going to help you down to write good introductions in your answers. So example, India reports the highest youth suicides in the world. Again, an important piece of data. Then 41% of all suicides are by youth under 30 years of age. And you're going to quote the source as well, as per the NCRB report of 2022. Right? So these data are very important, right? You need to pick it up and you need to add it to your relevant notes, which is going to help you down to write good answers in your examination. So it means basically young people are facing a lot of stress and challenges, which is pushing them towards this extreme event. And that is very disheartening as something which is happening in society. So there are different reasons for that as well. Let's look at what are the reasons. Number one, higher unemployment rate. You need to understand that there are high unemployment rates in the country, right? And with the whole idea of skill mismatch or structural unemployment, or we call it as structural or maybe frictional. So these kind of unemployments are prevalent commonly in the economy, right? And that is leading to a stressful situation. Why? Because people do not have jobs, right? So, and that is leading to feel them very frustrated and hopeless. And in these stressful conditions, they are not going to bear that whole pressure, and they take this of course extreme step. So an overall unemployment rate is 3 to 5%, but if we talk about youth unemployment, it is very high. that is 15 to 29%. And this is where government has been working on different skill India programs, and that is how maybe youth employment is going to create a lot of changes in economy as well as in this social front of suicide rates increasing. Then we have mental health crisis. So 50% of youth within the age group of 18 to 24, they are reported to have poor mental health. They feel anxiety, they have depressions, they have loneliness issues, but they do not have anyone to talk it out about. And but they don't get a proper help, and these are less talked things in generally in society. Government is doing taking a lot of steps, but we do not talk about these basic challenges or of mental health in society very openly, right? But these are the prominent things, and we are seeing a change which has come up with the government efforts, but a still lot need to be done to make it a normal thing. Just like we are having a physical health condition, this is also an important condition which needs to be addressed in a similar manner. Then we have relationship problems. That's a third reason for youth suicides. For example, 50% of suicides between the age group of 18 to 30, they are linked to family disputes, they are linked to love affairs, they are linked to marriage stress. I think in today's paper, one more topic was there with respect to two girls from Rajasthan who committed suicide, right? And they were young primary school teachers. Once they were told, and once they were forcibly told to marry against their choice, right? And these are prominent reasons with respect to suicides among youth in the country. Emotional issues feel overwhelming at a very younger age. Of course, we with age maturity comes, and we understand things in a from a broader perspective. But these youth ages and the challenges which are least discussed things that leads to increasing rates of suicides. Then we have cultural norms. Again, what are cultural norms? Norms which are prevalent in society, norms which are defining us, are telling us to do things in a certain manner only, right? And that is creating a sense of pressure. For example, patriarchal structures which affect the especially women, dowry, domestic violence, less access to education and jobs to women, which creates pressure plus inequality, and again leading to a form of suicide. Then there are other prominent issues. We have seen academic pressure among children. That's why we have Pariksha Pe Charcha by our Honorable Prime Minister, just to give this whole confidence to youth ki do not take pressure of academics, right? That is where, but again, still there are a lot of academic suicides among youth as well. Then debt, invalidated help seeking, people ignore their problems. Then social discrimination, all of these add up and they increases stress, and it take the form of suicides among the youth. So very prominent reasons, you can use them in your answers as a pointers of different headings, right? Then we have what is the possible way ahead, how we can tackle these young suicides in the country, what kind of steps needs to be taken. So again, around the challenges as well, we need to talk about it more. We need to talk about mental health in an open manner. For example, structural changes, for example, economic development, urbanization, educational reforms. So all of these need to take up the idea of these reasons of suicide, and they need to make certain policy level changes into them. So helps match youth aspirations with opportunities. Example, China has reduced suicide rates since 1990s. So of course, high unemployment rate. So we need to link employment. We need to make changes in the policy structures of urbanization, economic development, and educational reforms, so that the unemployment among the youth is getting reduced. Then gatekeeper training. Many times suicides does not come to someone very instantly. Maybe over a period of time, the stress develops, and then it gets manifested in the form of suicide. So of course, there are many gatekeepers, for example, teachers, the parents, the community members. Whenever they are seeing some kind of a change in the from the normal behavior of a particular person, they need to understand the person is going through some kind of a stress. And this is where their training is very important. From trained psychologists, they need to be trained to change, to basically understand the behavioral change in the people, and that is leading to maybe incidents of suicides. That is where they can identify warning signs like social withdrawal, sudden behavioral change, so they need to be trained. Then social empowerment, as I have discussed, in gender-based issues, patriarchal mindset are other reasons or the prominent reasons for suicide, especially among young youth women. For example, we need to promote gender equality, we need to reduce caste discrimination. For example, UGC guidelines against caste discrimination creates a fair and support environment. And then what are the other steps? Restrict access to means. Example, anti-suicide fans are an example. Again, though this is the last step or maybe a step for a very short term basis, होता है ना कि whenever you discuss possible solutions, this is an immediate solution for that. That again, maybe cut off all such maybe channels through which suicides could be committed. For example, we had this whole anti-suicide fans in Kota. Then add emotional regulation plus life skills in education, teach students how to handle stress. All of these are very important solutions with respect to how we can reduce youth suicides in the country. Government is also having few platforms and channels through which are trying to talk about this whole issue. Number one, National Suicide Prevention Strategy, which is a first dedicated policy which is focusing on reducing suicide through multi-sectoral approach. Then we have Telemanas, again a 24/7 helpline number, and anyone can come and of course call and talk about their problems and how they're going to deal with stress. Then we have National Mental Health Program, provides mental health services, reducing treatment gap. Now we are also trying to link mental health to the primary healthcare centers as well. So all of these are the strategies and steps of the government to tackle suicides in the country, but the youth suicides are on in rise, and there could be a probable questions in your mains examination of GS paper number 1 from this particular topic. Very important topic for an examination. The next topic is, our Honorable Prime Minister has talked about the ideas of better water governance in the country with respect to the occasion of Water Conservation on World Water Day, which is of course celebrated on 22nd of March. So we need to understand firstly what exactly is water governance. So whenever these kind of questions in GS paper 2, there could be a question from GS paper number 1, from geography also. This question or this maybe the content could be used in answers with respect to where we talk about water scarcity as a topic in and or the challenges around urbanization. So what is water governance? So governance, water governance basically means integration effort or integrated efforts of the government and society to plan, manage and distribute water in a sustainable manner. And there are different parameters of water governance. For example, we have water governance has different dimensions. It has environmental dimension, social dimension, economic dimension, and political dimension. For example, if I talk about economic dimension, so of course water is an economic asset as well, so we need to use it in an efficient manner. That is an economic dimension of water governance. Then with respect to social dimension, there are unequitable distribution of or unequitable use of water which is being seen in society. Maybe the privileged ones are having maybe more equitable access when we compare it with respect to men and women. Again, there is a disparity of water use, so those also need to be addressed. Then from the angle of environment, because water is a very important parameter of environment, again we can link it up to climate change, biodiversity, many such factors. So this is where the governance angle from environmental perspective comes into picture, where again we are going to talk about its sustainable use. And from the political dimension, so we are going to create policies which is going to instill equal democratic opportunities for everyone to get access to water. So these are the possible dimensions of water governance. You can draw these diagrams in your answers. This is where how can you fetch 1 mark or 2 marks more in your answers is by using or incorporating diagrams. So whenever you come across these news today articles, we try and give you maybe a pictorial format as much as possible for certain news. Use and add them in respective notes, and that is how you're going to remember them and use them actually in your answer writing process. Then we have, why do we need water governance? Number one, very simple basic facts. One is manage scarcity. India is having Water scarcity challenges, again, summer seasons are coming, we are going to experience them. We are going to see different areas of the country where again, which are facing water shortage issues. For example, India has 18% of world's population, but only having 4% of fresh water resources. So too many people, too less water. That's how we need to manage it in a more sustainable manner. Then we have economic growth. So poor water management can cause 6% of loss in GDP. So what is GDP? It is technically speaking about the values of goods and services produced within geographical boundary of the country. So if we are not managing in a water in a well manner, we are going to lose 6% of our GDP, which is again creating a lot of economic loss as per the Niti Aayog report by 2050. So less water basically means what? We are going to have less farming again interlinked to less industries, and of course we will see its effect in economy. Then climate resilience. So we need to have water management which is integrated. We'll discuss the challenges. The idea, of course, here is we treat different water in a different manner. We talk about maybe fresh water resources, we talk about underground water, we talk about running water, and we are seeing them from silos, not in a integrated manner. And that is something which we need to talk about. There has to be an integrated water resource management to maintain eco hydrological cycle and sustainable biodiversity. Water, environment, and climate change are all connected to each other. You must have read about water cycle or hydrological cycle. That is, water naturally recycles itself. So this natural cycle is getting disturbed due to this anthropogenic activities, and that's where water governance comes into picture. Then we have discussed this. Then what are the challenges which we are facing with respect to water governance in the country? As I have discussed, key water is now managed in a different manner. We see groundwater differently, we see surface water differently, and there are different schemes, different ministries, different bodies which are, let's say, seeing them, and we do not have an integrated one-stop platform to talk about water as a whole. And that is the one challenge. That is, we have a fragmented governance. So water is managed in silos, separate. For example, we have central groundwater board, we have central water commission. All of these are handling what different parts of water, but there is no integration, and that is something which we desire. And it resulting is no coordination between these all developments. Then we have over exploitation. Again, we have seen how in the agricultural sector, due to the subsidies of power provided by the government, how groundwater is being misused, right? And that is something which is a common challenge which we are facing with respect to water governance in the country. So groundwater aquifers are depleting due to subsidized power, of course, and lack of regulation. Example, farmers over pumping the water. Then we have lack of equitable access. Equitable access matlab, everyone in the country does not have an equal access over the water. We have, maybe I think this year I will discuss one such topic in the news in short, that the whole around the theme of this World Water Day was to talk about gender balance which need to be created towards access to water. So again, in India, we have also seen that again, many people do not have sustainable water access, and again, it is affecting majorly the women and their sanitation needs. And last is climate change. Climate change is affecting every other sector, every other thing in the economy. And this is where we need to adapt ourselves to climate change. And this is where water governance comes into picture. So basically, this climate change is disturbing the entire hydrological cycle, which I discussed. And it is leading to drought, flood, and irregular rainfall situation, which is again disturbing the whole ideas of water governance. And these are the prominent challenges with respect to water governance. Then what is the way forward? Of course, as I have discussed, maybe let's talk about water as one issue. Let's not see them from different perspectives, that it is groundwater, it is let's say surface water, it is rainwater. Let's see them in an integrated manner, and that is a one very important thing, that is integrated water resource management. That is, manage water at a river basin level, link the land water ecosystem. So again, one system and not separate parts. Then we have behavioral change, a very important parameter, because now people do not understand in reality what is water scarcity. So until you do not get to a situation where again water is not coming to your house for 1 or 2 days, you will not understand the value of water. But it is a very important parameter, because there are reports which are being telling if we are not going to use them in a sustainable manner, we are going to deplete the very good resource or of mother nature, that is water. For that we require a behavioral change and community participation. For example, people should use water responsibly, promote what is Jan Bhagidari. Example, we need to integrate Gram Panchayats plus village community committees to manage local water systems. Then we have circular water economy, reuse, recycle water. That's a basic idea instead of wasting it. And we need to have gender responsive water conservation, include women in the decision making, because they are mostly affect, and that's where we have discussed equitable distribution of water, which is again an issue. So these are the prominent way forward which you can use in your answers. Again, water governance, important topic for your paper number 1, paper number 2, GS1, GS2. You can use them as it is in your answers with a diagram and everything. That's where you can solve or write a good answer on the topic of water governance. Then in India, basic facts. So where does the constitution comes into picture, in which subject water is there? So water is basically a state subject on the 7th schedule, and interstate water, right? Because water does not see political boundaries, right? So water specifically is a state subject, but interstate water is a union subject, because of course for that there needs to be uniformity in the lawmaking. And then article, very important concept, that wherever you must have seen that in society, wherever there are disputes happening between governments, between government and people, between government and or the union government and state government, where do we go to resolve our disputes? We go to the courts. But for in India, this is a unique feature of Indian constitution, that for water disputes, the settlement is not going to happen in the courts. And this is where Parliament has been empowered under Article 262 to create a mechanism to resolve water disputes. And that is where Article 262 comes into picture, that is giving the powers to Parliament to resolve water disputes. That's why we must have seen Parliament by a law has created different kind of bodies and tribunals to solve water disputes. Then what are the legal mechanisms? We have Interstate Water Disputes Act, which is of course talking about water disputes. Then river boards for river management, and Water Act for pollution control, very important things. And then there are different initiatives of government with respect to groundwater governance in India. Facts for your prelims examination, very important. So Ministry of Jal Shakti was constituted in 2019 with an integrated approach for water management. Then we have Jal Jeevan Mission, again tap water to every household. You must have read them multiple number of times. This is where Jal Samitis with 50% women participation is there. Again, an important component of it. Then we have Namami Ganga program, that is river rejuvenation mission. Then we have Atal Bhujal Yojana, which is focusing on groundwater management plus community participation. So these are the water governance parameters which is being currently incorporated in the water governance of India. Very important topic for the examination. Then we have again newspapers these days are coming with a lot of fire accidents. Again, a topic of GS paper number 3, disaster management, man-made disasters, right? So fire safety is a very important concern. We are seeing a lot of fire hazards happening in many such places. And let's discuss this a very important issue which is there. So now, what are the reasons behind fire safety lapses in India? Again, prominent reasons. Very briefly, we'll discuss one by one each of them. Number one is environmental factors. Of course, with temperature increase, right? So hot temperatures leading to dry conditions, leading to again higher chances of fire breakout. So this is leading to fire spreading quickly. For example, in this whole Brahmapuram waste plant fire which happened in Kochi was due to this whole issue. Then we have unsafe urban design and high density. Now, urban spaces are not planned in a very systematic manner, and then many of them are avoiding basic protocols which need to be followed by making buildings, by having, let's say, fire exit routes in every building. So cities are overcrowded, of course, is high density, which we have seen as a problem of urbanization. Then mixed land use, which is having shops and houses together, which is not supposed to be done. And then illegal constructions are blocking escape, because if government has planned something the city hasn't planned, and you are just illegally constructing someone at a government land, so of course it is again compromising on the escape routes, which could have been better if these illegal constructions would not have been there, right? And then example, the Delhi commercial cum residential building fire, which has happened very recently in 2026 in the Palam region. Then structural violations, we have building codes but they are not being followed. We have building norms, fire safety norms, but these are not being followed by builders who are building these buildings. So poor building materials, right? Number one reason. Changed design without safety approval. Number two, faulty electrical systems. Example, Cuttack hospital fire, which has happened recently. Then weak buildings, fire spreads faster, rescue becomes very difficult. Then weak compliance and enforcement, rules like National Building Code are not being followed. I've discussed this. No proper fire exits are there in the buildings, and fire audits are very irregular. Then inadequate fire infrastructure and response capacity. So fewer fire stations, lack of equipment and trained personnel which are being there. Other factors are, let's say, electrical short circuits, poor maintenance, low public awareness. All of these are the important reasons why there are lapses around fire safety in the country, which are leading to certain events of or fire hazards, which we are seeing in the newspapers these days. Then what exactly is a way forward? How we can try and minimize these? That is something which we need to discuss. Number one is ensuring compliance. So mandatory third-party fire safety audits in every building, every houses has to be done. Proper checking before giving NOCs. Accountability of they will be there of officials. If you are approving, if you're giving NOC, no objection certificate, then if something is happening after that, then officials need to be held accountable, because we need to fix someone's accountability. Unless and until you're going to fix someone's accountability, the issues is going to persist and there will be no solution. And this is where this is a very important way forward. Then we have community awareness and participation. People should know how and what kind of drills, again mock drills are also being conducted, but again people need to know and take it seriously that in situations of fire, how they are going to handle it. So example, China's community based fire prevention programs. Then technological integration. AI is everywhere, so why not to use it in this whole for fire safety? AI has based hazard identification, risk assessment, mobile apps to report fire risk, better planning of fire stations. And lastly, secure funding, very important. Key, if you are facing shortage of funds with respect to management of fire issues of fire safety, incorporate a fire tax, right? That is something which you can use it as a fund to tackle these fire safety or issues which are again creating a lot of economic loss any which ways, and upgrade equipment and infrastructure around the fires. That's an important, very important topic for your GS paper number 3 on the topic of disaster management. Then what are the fire safety regulations in India? So again, constitution tells fire services of course is a state subject, and under municipalities, right, under this 12th schedule of Article 243W, it has been the responsibility of urban local bodies, very important. From specifically from Panchayati Raj and municipalities, there have a lot of questions which are being asked in prelims examination, that they ask what are the functions which are being devolved to these local bodies in India, which are of course mentioned in 11th and 12th schedule. You have to read them, each of them very carefully, look at the topics and look at which subjects, which provisions of the act are compulsory, which provisions of the act are voluntary in nature. Then we have National Building Code. Of course, the Bureau of Indian Standards is making fire safety guidelines for buildings. Then we have Model Building Bylaws. Again, 2016, we have issued Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which is helping states include fire safety in urban planning, very important. Then NDMA guidelines, fire safety rules for hospitals, buildings and cities, very sensitive areas. And then scheme for expansion, modernization of fire devices. So by Home Ministry, it is based on 15 Finance Commission recommendation, which is aiming to improve infrastructure and capacity around fire safety in India. A very important topic for your GS paper number 3. देखो कुछ disasters, they come in news, and that's how they become important for your examination. Interlink something which is coming in newspapers and think what would be the mindset of examiner to frame questions from topic in the syllabus, which of course which are there in news, right? News gives you a hint. Take that hint and incorporate them in a preparation strategy. Then we're going to see certain quick updates of the day. Very important exercise, Lamitier, again very important. Now as prelims is approaching, defense-based questions would be asked by maybe defense exercises between countries. So this is where this topic becomes very important. For example, exercise Lamitier again 2026. It is a INS Trikand of the Indian Navy participated in the exercise Lamity in 2026 in Seychelles. So it is basically a biennial military exercise between India and which country? Seychelles. Ye hai important. This is an important topic which you need to understand from the prelims examination perspective. You can read about INS Trikand as well, right? So this is where the whole idea of this topic comes into picture. Then we have Diego Garcia. This place is in news twice in last year. Why? Because in 2025, UK gave the sovereignty status of this particular area to Maldives, and it took that place for 99 years in lease from Maldives. So that is why this was in news one more time, and now it has come back again in news. Why? Because Iran has fired an intermediate ballistic missile at the Diego Garcia region. So basically this region is the largest island in the Chagos archipelago, which we have seen in the central Indian Ocean, and 500 kilometers south of Maldives. So again, we have seen 25 May UK has transferred the sovereign rights, and but it leased back for 99 years. So this area hosts joint US-UK military base. So as it is a US military base, that's why it got hit from Iranian missile. So it is located about 3,000 kilometers from Bab-el-Mandab and Malacca Straits, making it a very important monitoring key maritime checkpoints. So, and again, it is also very critical for US Space Force tracking infrastructure. That's why it is in news. Very important place. Twice or thrice is in news in last 1 year. Important theme for your upcoming examination. Then we have National Biodiversity Authority, NBA. Again, these bodies, very important. You must have been reading them in the static part of your environment and ecology, right? So this body has basically constituted a committee to talk about invasive alien species under the Biodiversity Act of 2002 as directed by National Green Tribunal. So you're going to, of course, you need about alien species, invasive alien species, right? So they can ask you questions like this: a committee on invasive alien species comes under a Biological Diversity Act, Environmental Protection Act, or maybe different acts names, and they can ask you to choose an option. So that's how you're going to see such things in the examination. So basically about basics about NBA as a body. Its headquarters in Chennai. It was established in the year 2003 under the Biodiversity Act of 2002. It functions under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It consists of a chairperson, which is of course appointed by the central government, along with 10 ex officio members and 5 non-official members. Its role includes conservation, sustainable use of biological resources, and fair equitable sharing of benefits. So approval of NBA is required for IPR based on Indian biological resources. So basic body, basic facts important for your upcoming prelims examination. Then we have this whole Trine Comale project, which is a project between India and Sri Lanka energy cooperation. So this is again in the news. Why? Because Sri Lanka is developing, India backed this whole project again on the whole issues of energy crisis to this whole conflict in the West Asia region. So this project is a natural harbor which is on the northeastern coast of Sri Lanka. Again, locate them in the map, different ports of Sri Lanka, right? And it is the second best natural harbor in the world. In 2022, India and Sri Lanka had a joint agreement that we need to have development of this oil tank farm. So what is an oil tank farm? Which is built in 1930s by British during the Second World War. The objective, of course, is to enhance the petroleum storage capacity and energy security around the entire region. And this is having a great strategic and commercial importance due to its locations in the Indian Ocean and aligns with India's Mahasagar and Neighborhood First Policy Program. They can basically ask you questions in prelims examination. What is this tri-commonly project? Between which countries? India, Sri Lanka, or maybe project it is related to what? Nuclear development, energy security, these kind of questions. So think from the perspective of how questions have been asked from these places in news in examinations in by UPSC in previous year questions. Then we have Panama Canal, again a very important artificial, let's say, water body or a canal which is in news, because again this is a canal which is maybe artificial inter-oceanic waterway using a lock system to raise and lower the ships. That's a basic idea. It is located in Isthmus of Panama in Central America. So it connects Atlantic Ocean to Pacific and the Pacific Ocean. It is an 82 kilometers long and has been operational since 1914. Basic facts there, and it is a very important canal which is reducing the shipment time or maybe global trade routes by 8,000 nautical miles. So Panama Canal, which is functioning at its top capacity as Iran war has increased LNG vessels traffic. That's why it is in news. Then we have mutual credit guarantee scheme for MSME 2025. MSME sectors, government is giving a lot of boost and support for the development because they're considered as powerhouse of an economy. They have a huge employment potential and they have a huge potential with respect to economic growth in the country. That's why credit access has to be provided to them, and that's why the scheme comes back in news. So government has modified the mutual credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs. So basically it's a central sector scheme providing 60% of a guaranteed, let's say, funds credit through National Credit Guarantee Trustee Company and two member lending institutions. So basically the idea of refinancing comes into picture for loans up to 100 crores for machinery and equipment purchase. So this is something for your MSMEs in the manufacturing sector. We are also trying to focus MSMEs access to not only to manufacturing but to services as well. So service sectors MSMEs are now included under this expanded eligibility criteria. So the equipment cost threshold is reduced to 60% of total project cost, and we are giving a guarantee of 10 years of tenure of credit, and the special provisions are included for exporters, including guaranteed loan amount up to 20 crores. So basically a scheme for providing credit to MSME sectors in the exports, in manufacturing and in services. Basic facts, so you have to remember them. Then we have antimicrobial resistance, AMR. So you must have heard about AMR or antimicrobial resistance, and that's why we need, many times you must have read that we need to very safely consume the antibiotics. We need to complete its course, or else our body will get immune from certain kind of an antibiotics. So what exactly is antimicrobial resistance? So researchers from CSIR Hyderabad have created this first AMR map in Indian urban wastewater, how urban wastewater, which is again getting what? Antimicrobial resistance. So the study shows that bacteria which is being developed in these wastewaters are resistant through genes that strengthen cell walls, neutralize antibiotics and spread to other microbes. So this is where a very important sensitive matter, health concern, how exactly we are getting treatment or treating this wastewater, how this wastewater are getting resistance from different kind of an antibiotics. So what exactly is antimicrobial resistance? It occurs when bacteria, viruses, fungi and parasites become resistant to medicines, and these are the antimicrobials like antibiotics and antivirals which are using to treat becomes ineffective in their functioning. Major causes includes misuse, overuse of antimicrobials and lack of wash, that is water, sanitation, hygiene. And it is also driven by poor infection control and lack of access to various vaccines. So basically idea of course here is the development by the institute tells Now there are many bacteria which are found in wastewater which are becoming resistant. So we need to maybe treat these wastewaters in a very careful manner. We need to also understand how we are going to reduce water pollution, and then everyone should basically follow a hygiene protocol so that the bacteria do not enter into the human system. That's the basic news all about. Then we have Minor Planet Center. So basically this Minor Planet Center is a worldwide organization which has discovered or the 15 new moons, including 4 around Jupiter and 11 around Saturn. So that's why it is in news. So MPC is a global repository of observations of minor planets, comets, and outer irregular natural satellites. It maintains master data of observations. Basically, it tracks down discoveries and announces new discoveries. Kahan hai? It is operational at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory under International Astronomical Union, AE. Very important. They can ask you Minor Planet Center coming under which body, which organization, under which body. All of these is important topic for examination. It is sponsored by NASA's Near Earth Object Observation Program. Facts for your prelims examination. Then we have UN World Water Development Report, a very important topic, because we have discussed one topic on water governance. We have celebrated Water Day, and the theme of this year's World Water Day was water and gender, which I have discussed. They can ask you, consider the following statements about UN Water Development Report 2026. Theme, they can give what is the theme, right? And of course, it aligns with SDG number 6, that is water security, and which cannot be achieved by achieving SDG number 5, that is gender equality, because the theme was water and gender. That's why these two SDGs come into picture. Remember all the SDG goals, very important for examination. And around 2.1 billion people lack access to safely managed drinking water as per the report, and 3.4 billion people lack access to safely managed sanitation services. Women and girls are the ones who are maybe spend over 2.5 million hours in collecting water, affecting education and income. Then this leads to physical strain, gender-based violence, and is worsened by climate change. So women are underrepresented in water governance, and this is where we have seen how our Prime Minister has also talked about how a social angle to think about water governance comes into this picture. With this, we come to an end of today's news discussion video. So all important questions which could be framed from the topic will be popping up in your screen. So please solve those questions, as once you solve the questions, your mind will get trained enough to understand that once I read the news, how questions are basically framed from the news which could come up in my upcoming prelims examination. Please solve those questions. Lastly, which has come up with a one-stop solution for your current affairs. Please go and explore this website. It is certainly going to help you a lot with respect to your current affairs preparation. So till now, all the very best, and thank you so much.